Good morning and happy Tuesday to all of our Youth Solutions and Jobs for Michigan's graduates, family, friends, and supporters, and welcome to our second in-person live broadcast of Coffee with a Purpose. We're coming to you live from Marquette, Michigan in the Upper Peninsula. Thank you for joining us. As a continuum of our last session, our conversation will focus around diversity, equity, inclusion, and youth. My name is Chris Canchola, and I am the Student Success Technician and a Jobs for Michigan's Graduate Specialist at Marquette Alger Technical Middle College in Marquette, Michigan. For those of you that don't know, MATMC is what we call the Marquette Alger Technical Middle College for short.
And my name is Harger Bowl. I'm the Assistant Director of Equal Opportunity and Title IX Coordinator at Northern Michigan University here in Marquette, Michigan. On our panel today, we have James, Rose, and Sage. They are all Jobs for Michigan's Graduates, or JMG, as we like to call it, youth and alumni from the Marquette Alger Technical Middle College. James Doucette is 17 and is a part of the Marquette Alger Technical Middle College JMG program in grade 11. Right now, he's working toward earning an Associate of Applied Science in Welding Technology at Northern Michigan University in Marquette, Michigan. Rose Sires is 18 and is a part of the Marquette Alger Technical Middle College JMG program in grade 13. She's currently working toward an Associate of Applied Science in Nursing at Bay College in Escanaba, Michigan. And Sage Foffel is 20 and an alumni of the JMG program at the Marquette Alger Technical Middle College. And he's currently finishing his Associates in Surgical Technology at Northern Michigan University. Thank you all for being here and to engage in this important conversation. For audience members who wish to ask a question of our panelists, please use the chat function, as we'll be monitoring it throughout the session, and we reserve some time at the end to answer some of those questions.
Let's turn it over to our panel of youth. First, we want to start the conversation by letting everyone here know that this is a safe space, and you are welcome to share as much or as little as you wish. I know this is an important conversation, but can also be a sensitive one, and we want you to feel comfortable. I will take some time to ask each of you questions, and please feel free to chime in if you have something to add after someone else shares. First, I'd love for each of you to tell us a little more about yourselves. Let's start with you, Rose.
My name's Rose Sires. I'm a hospitality aide at a nursing home in Munising. I love animals and I love crystals. I enjoy being outdoors and I love spending time with my family.
Thank you, Rose. And you, James?
My name is James Doucette. I love biking, welding, longboarding, and I just recently got into photography.
Beautiful. And finally, Sage.
My name is Sage Foffel. I'm a middle college alumni and a surgical tech student at NMU who has finished his classes and is headed towards clinicals in the winter.
Yeah, exciting time. Sage, what inspired you to want to be part of this conversation today?
I think that it's very important for young people to have a voice in these things that are happening and that has happened in the world, whether that be like political or medical or something else. And it's important for others to listen to those voices and take them into account.
That's awesome. What about you, Rose?
I didn't realize I had ADHD for a long time. I thought I just procrastinated and was a little lazy. And then when I got to college, it got a little bit worse being on my own. So I decided to get it checked out, and turns out I have some ADHD. And I feel like the concept of having a condition is a little limited to what people think they portray themselves as. And I think it's just good to get a different perspective out there.
So thank you for that. Same question to you, James.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know much about it and thought it would be a great opportunity to speak with others about the different things that are happening.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for sharing about yourselves and your personal reasons for wanting to be here today to have this conversation. Let's continue. For context, equality means providing the same to all. Equity means recognizing that we do not all start from the same place and must acknowledge and make adjustments to imbalances. Rose, can you share a time where you experienced true equity?
Yeah, so after I found out I had ADHD, I was struggling with my classes and just needed a little extra help. I met with the Office of Accommodations at Bay College, and they really helped me figure out what they could do to better me in my classes. They gave me extended test time. If there wasn't built-in breaks into my classes, they gave me extra breaks. And they also gave me the opportunity to have like excused absences because I struggle with the concept of time. But I figured that would hurt me more than help me, so I turned that down, but they were extremely helpful with trying to accommodate for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. James, experience of True Equity?
So when I first moved here back in 2018, I moved 500 miles away, didn't really have any friends, which was really upsetting. And Start the Cycle is a mountain biking program that I joined. And they just really helped me get myself out there and make lots of friends, build teamwork skills, leadership skills. And now I've become a junior mentor, helping the same kids that were in my situation. I'm really grateful to be able to have that opportunity.
Awesome, that's really admirable. And Sage?
So I learned I had some trouble retaining information in the past semester. But both of my surg tech professors understood and immediately started taking steps to help me. They met me where I needed to be met. And I think that's like a true moment of equity for me.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Sage, let's continue with you. What do you think are some ways we can all embrace and acknowledge the diversity of people in our communities, at work, and in school?
So I think that getting like out involved, a big part of that is volunteering and going to events around Marquette. I like to volunteer at Pride Fest and, various festivals around Marquette. And I think it's a great way to be involved in the community and embrace the different people around us.
How about you, James?
So I'm big on one-on-one when like acknowledging differences and learning differently and working differently. We have classes that teach in big groups, like the welding class that I'm in, which is really good for some people, but others need one-on-one time to learn. And I am a good welder, so I go around and help people individually in my classes. And over the past week, I've helped 6 people learn how to weld better than they were before because what they were doing before wasn't working the best for them. And I'm just glad I was able to help them fix what they were doing wrong.
That's good to hear. And what are your thoughts about this, Rose?
I feel like just keeping in mind that everybody has something going on, whether it be in their mind, their body, their home life, and just trying to be understanding and accepting of that. And just knowing that everybody's different. And even if you have the same hobbies or you're in the same program, there's always going to be something different. And you just have to be willing to accept that and not hold that against someone.
All right. So kind of in connection with that previous question, from your perspective, can you talk to us about the importance of accepting others as their authentic selves? Rose, let's stay with you.
So I, as said, think everybody has their own ideas and their own personal experiences. And if you aren't willing to understand where they're coming from and listen to them, you aren't going to get their perspective on life. There's a lot of things that are different with a lot of other people. And I feel like if you aren't willing to accept them, you will never understand where they're coming from.
What do you think, James?
So how do I put this? You gotta let them know that they're there for you, or you're there for them. Sorry. You never want someone to feel alone, because feeling alone makes you feel helpless and makes you very upset and horrible. And you should always be there for someone and accept them for who they are and what they're doing. It's just very important.
Same question to you, Sage.
I think being accepting can really affect someone's life. Being part of the LGBTQ community, I was terrified to come out. But luckily the people around me were very accepting and it turned into a positive experience for me. When I hear about others' experiences and like sometimes I even hear about people cutting off contact with friends or family or teens getting kicked out after coming out, it really shows that being an accepting person can absolutely change somebody's life.
Thought it was interesting that you kind of shared both ends of the equation, right? You talked about community involvement and going to events and being out there in the public, and then you two talked about kind of one-on-one, individualized, spending time, letting people know you're there for them, thinking about what else might be going on. So nice contrast.
Yeah, the whole spectrum of this topic. Thank you all for sharing. Those were some really good insights and really great ideas. To give a little more background on why Harger and myself were excited to moderate today's session, we'll take just a moment to share a bit more about ourselves and why participating as moderators for this hour was important to us. I myself, being born in Chicago, I come from a Hispanic background, that is a culture that is not as present up here in the Upper Peninsula. So I dealt with some challenges surrounding diversity at a very young age. In addition to that, I also have a history with neurodivergence myself. And I wish that the conversation was a little more open and I had felt a little more comfortable in my youth to talk about accommodations and what things were available and not feel so insecure about it. And beyond that, I love working with students. I love mentorship. I love talking to students about how to advocate for themselves and coaching them on how to be able to do it themselves.
Thanks, Chris. I've always been kind of drawn to diversity and these topics. And coming from, being a middle-class Caucasian cisgendered guy in America, it was always something that I felt like I owed the community and owed other people to kind of look into, learn more about, and try and be proactive. So that started early on for me. And then even in school, I kind of was drawn to these subjects. But then in my career, I started working in special ed here at Marisa in the transition programs, helping in the classroom at first, and then becoming a work-based learning technician, going out into the community, trying to help youth with a diagnosed disability, get some life skills, get some job skills, and build a future for themselves. Also was in the AmeriCorps program and worked with youth that had some disadvantages, and that really opened my eyes and opened my professional world as well. And then after doing that for a while, I moved on to Northern Michigan University and was the disability coordinator there. So kind of like Rose was speaking about, I was doing that job, helping students kind of coming in as freshmen and then continuing throughout, getting accommodations, helping them succeed academically. And now I am in equal opportunity and Title IX. So kind of another world of helping folks who may feel discriminated against or may have some kind of a complaint, not just students now, but also faculty and staff, and working in the Title IX world with LGBTQ plus and pregnant students too, trying to make sure they have equity as well. So it's really been a good adventure, and I'm really excited to be here and proud to be here and happy that I was invited.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Harger. Do you guys have any follow-up questions for us about any of that?
Oh, I think it's good.
Okay, cool. Thank you for letting us share a little bit about ourselves. With that, we do have some more things to ask you all before we turn to questions that have started coming in from our live Zoom audience. Our next question actually comes from an audience member, though, of the first DEI session, and it's such a good one. She stated that she feels the youth today are more open to embracing diversity and being inclusive. How do you all think we can connect adults to kids and tap into that positive energy? Let's start with you, James.
So I learned from past experiences as well, and that's just how I learn best. And it takes time to learn from my mistakes, so I don't make them twice usually. And my idea in a sense is that we need to be self-aware and reflect on how we're able to be better people.
Beautiful, thank you. How about you, Rose?
To kind of build on his answer and your previous answer, because you were saying when you were growing up, people weren't as accepting. I feel like it's not that you guys didn't have empathy, it was just, it wasn't that well talked about. People weren't willing to talk about what was going on with them because you would be judged for it. And I think most people just need to put themselves in other people's shoes and know that what they're going through is different than anything you could ever go through. And maybe it is the same, but for each person, how that makes you feel is different. It's completely different. And I make mistakes way more than twice. I do not learn my lesson. It takes me a little bit. And it took me a little bit to be able to understand where other people are coming from and accept my own disability. So it's a difficult thing to learn, but it's something we all need to learn and be accepting of.
Awesome. I just have a little bit of a follow-up. I mean, from my perspective, I've always kind of thought of that as kind of a generational thing. Do you?
I agree with that as
Yeah.
well, yeah.
I feel like it's not just a generational thing. I think there's a lot more studies being done and there's a lot that we've learned about it. Now people are understanding, oh, this is something that is caused, like, my non-concept of time is caused by my ADHD, and I didn't realize that. I thought I just like slept a lot and lost track of time all the time. Turns out I dissociate. So there's a lot more that we're learning about each disability every day, and there's a lot more to talk about now.
Awesome. Sage, any ideas or thoughts to add to any of that?
Yeah, I think a big part of connecting is really listening to what teens have to say. And I think that a lot of information that they give it can be incredibly valuable, but it gets overlooked.
Mhm.
I think making a conscious effort to hear them out can help build a stronger connection and form like a better understanding between the kids and adults.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your peers are doing that to a greater extent than maybe some of the older generation?
I think so, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think maybe is aiding in that evolution today?
Technology for sure, because everyone is online and there's such quick access to millions of people. There's so many different people that you can talk to now, that it's not just, oh, I talked to this person in real life and I never talk to anyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you do, but a lot of people are talking to a bunch of different people now, and everyone's different, so.
Yeah, maybe exposed to a lot more.
Exposed, yeah, that's a
Right?
good word.
What are your thoughts on that, on social media and everything?
I think it opens up a lot of resources.
They
For that
can be
understanding.
helpful and hurtful at the same time.
Yeah, there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
Sometimes it makes you overthink and sometimes it makes you feel accepted.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, there's a fine balance that I think we're all pretty aware of when it comes to social media these days.
Mhm.
One thing I'd like to add too is like, as we mentioned, it connects us more, we're exposed to more, we're having conversations with more people, but from my end of things, it's always been important to balance the human element too, right? The one-on-ones, so to speak. So
Mhm.
finding that balance, it's kind of a hard territory to navigate, I feel like.
Mhm.
Kind of wish we could all just set off an EMP, take down all technology and go back to writing letters. It'd be a lot simpler.
Yeah. Okay, well, connecting with our previous question, what are some suggestions you have on starting these conversations with other people? Youth and adults alike. Once again, let's start where we ended the previous question. Sage?
This might not be a preferred method for everybody, but when I have a topic that needs to be talked about, even if it's uncomfortable, I bring it up. Like, boom, it's there, it's on the table now. I think that uncomfortable issues need to be talked about and normalized, and part of that listening to that person is when they bring it up and hearing their point of view. An example, again, when I came out, it took me a while, but I brought it up and I blurted it out one day, and my mother told me as long as I was a good person, it didn't matter what I was.
Mhm.
It's really valuable. Rose, what do you think?
I think that, just being willing to have these conversations and like open, like direct eye contact, nodding along, knowing that like you're paying attention to that person so they can see that. And so they're not feeling like discouraged of talking to you. They know that you care about what they're saying and they want to have this conversation with you versus them just thinking, oh, she's just not paying attention. She just asked me this as like a topic filler.
Right. Right. Yeah, kind of making that person know that you do care about what they have to say, right?
Mhm.
James, how about you?
I agree with the being open, like an open mind is really important when talking to someone new or different. You just gotta, like, you don't know, you can't expect to know that they're gonna understand everything. You can do your best to try and explain it to them or make them understand, but you're not always going to be able to do that. So just always have an open mind in important conversations that matter to you.
Mhm.
And I feel like asking questions is very important because if you don't ask questions, you're not gonna understand. And you can listen all you want, but if they're saying something you don't understand, maybe they can explain it in a different way you will understand.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
Well, yeah, I would also add that, the more that you, as you were saying, Sage, bring these things up and put it out there to be talked about, the easier it gets for you, someone who's lived a little longer than you can attest to that, it gets easier. And then back to kind of what you said, Rose, is like having us have these conversations like we're doing now tends to spread that message and get the word out, have people think about it, and then when it comes up later, they're just more accepting and more ready to ask those questions, right? Or
Right.
listen.
Yes, speaking of being a little older, Harger, as we are, I have this conversation in my personal life with, my peers or my elders about what I see going on in schools today. And yes, you guys do deal with struggles and hardships nowadays, no doubt. But I do notice a willingness to have more open conversations. And I do notice that the generations today are more open-minded. And that is a sentiment you guys would agree with?
Yeah,
Yeah,
wonderful. Something to be proud of, too.
yeah, very much so.
So moving on to the next question, what has been one of your best lessons learned in the past few years? Can you say why this was an important learning moment for you? And do you think your lesson can help another student in your shoes? So James, let's start with you.
So this really helped me. It's a quote from one of my favorite songs is, you don't need to find out you're dying to start living. And that can be interpreted any way you'd like, but just live right now. If you're in the moment, you aren't gonna live forever. So live your best life, and life's too short to be mean to people. So just always stay humble and kind.
Yeah. Sage, what do you think?
I think the best lesson I learned is connecting with professors and people in school. My professors have helped me through a lot of issues that I've brought up to them. I'm in like a kind of weird gap year type thing because I completed my major classes before my gen eds. And, I learned I have trouble retaining information. So getting my techniques and my information down is a must before I take my entrance exam. And both of my professors helped me get to a point where I'm able to go into the lab and work in there without taking my classes or taking any classes at all. And I've learned that a support system it's absolutely a must when you're going through school. I used to be somebody that's like, I can do this on my own. And I learned very fast that's not how it works.
So they took the time to kind of work up with you one-on-one to develop
Yeah.
some of these techniques. Did you go to them first?
We had like a kind of joint meeting and, they were like, okay, well, we need to get you to this point. And then they asked me what I needed. And now I'm able to go in and work with them one-on-one and get this stuff down.
Excellent.
I think that just the very idea of asking for help itself is a simple thing, but it terrifies
It's
people,
hard.
right? Yeah.
Rose, what about you? What was one of the best lessons? that you
Mine
learned?
kind of ties on to Sage's answer, although mine isn't with my professors, it's with my family. So in high school, my parents pushed me for my grades, like making sure all my assignments were on time. And my first semester of college, I moved into the dorms away from my parents. I was hanging out with friends, trying to make friends. And I lost track of my grades and I did a little rough my first semester. And so just being willing to like accept help, because every teenager goes through the phase of like, I don't need my parents. They're just nagging on me, and I thought that originally, and then I moved back the second semester and my grades were great. I got A's and B's, and I just feel like having them there as a support system is extremely helpful. And the same applies to professors, just like Sage was saying, they help you as much as they can, office of accommodations. There's a lot of people that are willing to help you. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there to get the help.
Yeah, good answer. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that accommodation process was like? Like what did you do? How did it work? Did you feel good or uncomfortable, or how did it go?
So after I failed anatomy and physiology my first semester, I'm not gonna lie about that. And after that, halfway through that first semester, I got diagnosed with ADHD. And I was extremely nervous to ask for help, so I procrastinated it, as I do. And I ended up going there towards the end of my second semester when I was doing good, just to see like if there was any other helpful things I could do, because I have
Mhm.
extremely bad test anxiety.
Mhm.
And I have trouble focusing whenever there's people walking around in the classroom or by the classroom.
Mhm.
And so I just thought it would be good to have, like, meet with someone who could help me with that. So I scheduled an appointment with Office of Accommodations, which was super easy. Went to Bay College, filled out a form, submitted it. She emailed me within that week to
Mhm.
set up a time with me. We met the next week and she just started running through, asking me questions about what affects you, what can we do to help you with this? And she kept recommending me like different accommodations that they can offer me.
Mhm.
And like I said, they offered me that excused absence because I lose track of time, and I figured that would be more hurtful than helpful, because then I would be like, oh, I don't have to go to this class, I can get an absence.
Yeah.
So I ended up turning that one down, but it was great that they offered it. They were super like willing to help me. And I think that most people are a little nervous to go in there. I sure was.
Mhm.
And she asked me what I needed help with and did what she could to help me. And I thought that was great.
Yeah, and you said you got diagnosed well during your freshman year, so you were new to the whole idea of accommodations and everything. Okay, well, good for you for going in there. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for your willingness to have this conversation and answering all these questions so openly. Now we're gonna take a moment to answer some of the great questions that have been coming in from our audience in the chat. So I'll start, Chris.
Yeah.
This question is from Haley Rhodes. What would you say to other youth that would encourage them to advocate for their selves? Sage, you wanna go first?
I think I agree with what you talked about earlier. If you don't do it yourself, it's not gonna happen. I really like that.
Mhm.
And the more you do it, the easier it is to apply yourself into advocating for yourself. The
Mhm.
more you sit there and you're like, I need to get this done and nobody's gonna do it but me, the more you're willing to do it and the more you will get accomplished.
Mhm.
I agree with all of that. There's like, if you don't do it, you're not gonna go around and no one's gonna go around doing it for you. It's your job to do it, so you gotta do it.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. And just to remind you, all these questions are for all of you. So thanks for all chiming in. Our next question comes from Dr. Andrea Blue. It says it's for James and Rose, but Sage, please feel free to chime in. What plan do you have in place post-graduation? Do you have a mentor to assist with the plan? Kind of a two-parter.
After graduation, I'll be doing the 5th year, which after that, I would be looking for a job, which I have a summer job right now at Moyle Concrete and Construction. And they did offer me a welding job, but I'd like to go down state to where my grandparents live and buy that house along with welding there, because I think it'd be a good opportunity.
Cool.
So I graduated high school last year. I just graduated the middle college, just a couple weeks ago, actually. And now I'm gonna finish up my actual college, getting my associates for nursing, and then I have to work locally for a couple of years. And then the end goal is to be a traveling nurse and just go anywhere I can and get as much experience as I can. Right now, being a hospitality aide, I feel like it's a good stepping stone. I will be taking my CNA class at the end of this month, actually. And so I feel like just getting up there to where I want to be, which is a traveling nurse, is the end goal. It's just stepping stones the whole way. And I have great mentors here at MATMC who help me all along the way, even though I'm out of middle college. They'll be bugging me every month during the school year. And I look forward to hearing from them. They're great. They help with anything I need help with, any questions I have, and I wouldn't trade them for anything.
Oh, it's very sweet, Rose. Sage?
I think one of my goals maybe is to be a traveling tech. I really want to do that just for the experience. But like my whole support system, most of them are just like text away. I think my main mentor going through clinicals will be my clinical coordinator, Amy. She's like the mom of everybody that's going through clinicals, and I think she'll be a huge help.
Wonderful. Cool. I just have to follow up. I mean, you both mentioned traveling. What would you say to youth out there that maybe growing up in the Upper Peninsula haven't seen much? Would you say get out there, experience the world? Why do you want to travel so badly?
I am super scared to travel actually, but I feel like being in the UP, I was like super isolated, I've lived like a little quiet, happy life. And I just want to go out there and experience some of the chaos that comes with living in bigger places, And I've never been on an airplane. I drive everywhere I go. I drove to Florida once. So just getting out there and being paid to travel and help people is something that I would love.
I was also planning on doing the same and traveling. Only thing is, I've only ever been out of Michigan once, and it was to Green Bay, and like, that is not very far out of Michigan. It might as well also be Michigan. Controversy there, but it is what it
Wait
is.
till you get a car, then you
Yeah.
can go anywhere.
I would like to hit all of the states and then probably fly to a bunch of different places,
I
like
wanna go
the,
somewhere warm.
I plan on living somewhere pretty warm, so.
I'm hoping.
Well, it's a good thing that our 2 months of summer are upon us, right?
Almost.
Right.
We're there.
Just to follow up on this a little further, we talked a little bit about accommodations in an education setting. We're talking about future plans and jobs and everything. Do you feel prepared to maybe raise these same concerns with your employer and talk about accommodations at the workplace? I mean, the Americans with Disabilities Act covers more than just schools, so do you feel prepared for that? Have you thought about that? What are your thoughts about carrying this over to the workplace? Sage?
Again, I think it's definitely scary, but I got my papers in line and I think that if I need the accommodations, that's what I need,
Mhm.
and I've gotta go get that.
So maybe it sounds like you'll try it out and see what
Yeah.
you need before raising the concern.
Yeah.
Okay. Rose, what about you?
I feel like in nursing, I'm not gonna get like accommodations like I did in college, I can't have extended test time because I have to do it right away, or my patient's health is at risk.
Mhm.
So I feel like that's gonna be a bit challenging for me, but I also am good at thinking on my feet as much as my brain would like to disagree with me.
Yeah.
Not to mention as a hospitality aide and working in a nursing home, I already have talked to my employer about like, hey,
Mhm.
I have medication for my ADHD and I need to be able to take it every like 4 hours during my
Okay.
shift. That way I'm not all over the place with my squirrel brain going on. So they are willing to work with you, and it was scary being like, hey, I do need to take my meds
Yeah.
on time, but they were super willing to work with it. So I was grateful
Okay.
for that.
So you already kind of broached that subject.
Yeah.
Right. James, do you have any thoughts on this?
With welding, my accommodation is reading comprehension. It just kind of flies over sometimes. But I have a good memory when it counts, if you know what I mean, like,
Mhm.
it comes and goes, but the reading comprehension, the only thing that I can really think of that would make me struggle with my job would be reading blueprints and such.
Mhm.
But I believe with the college classes, I'll get more experience with it and I'll be all right.
All right.
But if it does come down to it, I'm very open to my employer
Mhm.
and can talk to him about whatever.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing. Let's take another question here. This one is from Shonda Newburn. What are some specific ways that you've advocated for change and the successes and the challenges that you faced? James, let's keep going with you.
Hmm,
Advocating for change.
Advocating for change. Okay, so. Should I get some time to think about this one?
Sure, of course.
Let's move over to Rose.
Advocating for change. I went to Munising High School, which didn't have as many programs as some of the other high schools. So I worked with Middle College to get to go to Marquette Senior High School and take a health occupations class while also in NMU. And So advocating for change is just advocating for yourself and what you personally want to change.
Mm,
And I wanted to be able to take some extended classes that Munising didn't necessarily have to offer, but I still got to go to all of the above, and it was great because Munising, I got to still see my friends. They had some great classes there that I could take.
mhm.
And then middle college worked with me to go to Marquette, take classes there while also going to NMU. And I just thought it was a great to be able to go to all three of them.
Great, thank you. Sage, what do you think?
I did that exact same thing. I took the health occupations class. I was going to North Star at the time. And you know, North Star is relatively small. So I was able to go and take that program while still, you know, taking college classes and going to high school and doing all that stuff.
And I think it's great that middle college allowed us to do that
Oh, yeah.
because like they are great schools, but Marquette Senior High School is what, a grade A school? And that health occupations class helped me a lot with my nursing field right now.
So much.
Oh, yeah.
So with the middle college, the way my current high school schedule is set up, I only have one required class that I need to take,
Mhm.
which is so nice for setting up college classes and getting rolling into it.
Mhm.
So I'll be able to go to all the welding or English 11, 111 and like OSHA class that I need to take for starting up. And that is just really gonna help me get started. And
Mhm.
grateful that we can do that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I thought that was an interesting answer by all three of you to say, just by advocating for myself, I'm advocating for change and maybe, you know, setting the stage for the students that are younger than you that are coming behind you to kind of have that be a precedent already. So
Can I add on to my previous answer? too?
please.
Also by going to Bay College through middle college, now there's 2 other people from middle college program that's going to Bay.
Yeah.
So I was glad to be one of the stepping stones into that. I wasn't the first one, I was actually the second. But by just being there and showing that it can work out, it's opened a lot of doors for multiple other people that it'll help them, so.
Absolutely.
Really awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, more on like a larger scale, Sage, you mentioned volunteering for Pride Fest here in Marquette, which has become quite the event. And there seems to be some advocacy going on for change there. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? If you have nothing to add immediately, that's okay. I'm just curious as to what the, you know, I know that they are working toward a goal, right? So I was curious if there was anything that you were involved in with that you brought to mind.
I don't know about any concerns of like the board or anything, but it has moved a little bit because we moved down to the lower harbor area.
Yeah.
And it's so much bigger and it's nice.
Right,
Like, I believe this is the second one down at Lower Harbor,
okay,
so obviously we're getting bigger.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's great.
Yeah.
Move in the right direction. Okay, well, let's move on to a different question here. Gotta turn my iPad back on. My next question here is from Miranda. I know it was brought up, but can you guys elaborate a little more on what effects you think social media has made on the conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Sage, since I
Stick it on me.
tripped you up before, let's continue on with you a little bit.
Your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay, no problem. It was brought up before, but elaborating on the effects you think social media has made on the conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I'm gonna add on to his answer earlier, like, there's many resources and there's people, and it's like, it opens up an entire world.
Yeah,
People and opinions and research and all of this other stuff.
Okay.
And obviously, you know, there's that balance between the good and bad,
Right.
and like overthinking and feeling like included and respected and stuff.
Rose,
There's many aspects.
yeah,
I feel kind of what he said, it opens up so many doors to be able to talk about this. You hear other people's stories and what they went through to get accommodations and be accepted and get equity instead of just equality. Like, there's all of these things that you get to hear about whenever you're on the social media. And again, there's that fine line between like, you can't believe everything you hear on the internet. But there's so many personal stories out there that you could just listen to about people coming out as gay or bisexual or coming out with a disability and what they had to face to get accommodations and how it's impacted them in their life. And there's just so many different things that social media can do for us and allow us to learn about. And I think it's a great thing, but it's also a very dangerous thing because there's a lot of false information that could be spread very fast.
Yeah,
I don't think there's much I can add to that.
yeah, it's a pretty solid answer. Thank you for that.
You know, one point I might add too is that we are up here in the Upper Peninsula. We're from different areas in the Upper Peninsula, but we're all pretty rural. So to have access to some of these things that you're talking about, which may not have been, you know, in the past, to see some of that stuff. We're not in an urban setting where there naturally is a lot of diversity, right? So to see other people that are like you and hear their stories, even in this remote setting, has got to feel good, I would think. 100%. Let's move on to this next question. This is from Lauren Hesides. Sorry if I didn't say your name right. What is a goal you're working on that JMG is helping you to achieve? Rose, you want to go first this time?
Sure, they kind of help with like a little bit of everything. They help you find summer jobs, they help you find jobs after you've graduated with your associates or your degree. They just kind of help you with a little bit of everything. I have personally worked with them when I went to Marquette Senior High School for the health occupations class to get some gas money because it was a long drive, and instead of coming up 1 day a week, I came up 5 days a week. So they really helped me with a lot of different things, and they allowed me to expand what I was able to do by helping me pay for my gas and helping me find jobs and helping me do all of these things. And I think it's just really great to have them kind of in your pocket. And it's not just for middle college students. JMG will work with multiple varieties of people. And I think that's a great thing to talk about and not something that we necessarily talk about because we're all middle college students. So it's kind of based on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Adding to that, my younger brother, is going through JMG with I think he's signing up for a carpentry internship. And I've worked with them in the past, and it's just awesome.
James, you got any thoughts on this question?
I know your brother, I believe.
I think you probably do. He's gonna
Yeah.
start the cycle.
Yeah, he's a very good worker, and I'm like glad that he's gonna be getting into such a good program like JMG.
Hmm.
That's about it.
Awesome, little connections. One of the benefits of being up here in the UP, huh? All right, let's see, next question, kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit. Oh, looks like. When you're talking to others about your differences, how do you showcase your differences as strengths? James, would you like to start? Take a stab at that.
So I'd say that being able to say that I can do something this way compared to other people doing it this way would be better in my own way because I understand it better. But I can see where people would be like, oh, that's not right because I do it this way. And everyone is different, so everyone's gonna do it differently. So that's about as far as I got with that.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of to build off of that, I feel like finding different ways to do something could be better ways to do something. And if you're just stuck in this like mindset of, oh, I've been doing this for years and it works, you'll never find that better way to do it. So I move around a lot. I'm all over the place, which is great for like a hospitality aide because I'm running around making beds and taking care of residents. So just because I do something differently and I'm a little more spacier than other people, doesn't mean I don't get the job done. I'm just a little bit more like all over the place. I still get to sit there and like talk to people and do my job. I do it in a different way than what normal people do it.
To add on that, I saw a post a while back and it was talking about employers hiring lazy people to do hard jobs compared to harder, like more working people to do the same job over and over again. Because the lazier people would find an easier way to do that job, but then they could
Easier
implement
and faster.
easier and faster that they could then implement into the like job site.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's funny. It kind of reminds me of a poster that my cooperating teacher had in her classroom. It said, there are shortcuts in life.
Yeah, all right. All right, let's take another question here. This one is from Terry Albers. Terry wants to know, what is the most important thing adults can do to help support youth? And maybe more specifically, to connect with youth And Terry wants you to know that, they believe you are all amazing.
Thank
You
you.
guys are amazing. What can they do to connect with you? Sage, let's start with you.
I'm gonna kind of piggyback of what I was talking about earlier. I think listening is just an enormous part of it and not like opposing that.
Mhm.
Like, there's conversations where somebody will bring up their opinion and it immediately gets shot down.
Mm,
Like, I think it needs to be more open, having those uncomfortable conversations.
yeah.
I agree with that, like, we're all living our own lives, and it shouldn't be like, no, you're living a different life than me, you're not good enough to be whatever. It's, you're living your life, I'm living my life, we're just living life.
And I feel like maybe for older generations, a way to kind of get your mindset into like being more accepting to younger people. Think if that was like your kid.
Mhm.
Think if your kid had whatever that person has going on in their life.
Mhm.
Like, think of your kid as being bisexual, gay, having ADHD, having a disability, anything like that. And think about how you would want them to be treated, or how you would want yourself to be treated nonetheless.
Mhm.
Just being more accepting and understanding that people have their own things going on.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's great. Thank you. Our next question comes from Hope, a little more focused question in connection to what we were all been talking about. What are some of the barriers or challenges you face being in the Upper Peninsula specifically, do you think?
You don't have bigger cities. You
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
a lot of the traffic. I went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was rush hour. I didn't realize that. I almost got into like 5 car crashes. I've never driven in that big of a place. So I feel like it's very limited on what you're exposed to up here. And we do have like some disasters that happen, but there's a lot more in bigger cities. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but whenever you move down there, you're gonna have to face these things and deal with them and everything. And it's just, you're kind of isolated up here and you don't have that experience. So
Mhm.
it's something you gotta learn.
I agree with that, like the exposure to new opportunities. Yeah, we have a lot of amazing opportunities up here, but bigger, more open cities have even more than we do. It's
Mhm.
just, they have more than us, and that there's not much we can really do about that unless we bring more opportunities up here, but then it wouldn't be as secluded as we have it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's also kind of great because living up here, I have a gigantic yard. And then you go into like a city like Grand Rapids and you got these little tiny yards with like barely any grass. And I'm like, I could never live there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yet everybody seems to have a dog in the city. I don't get it,
right?
right? All right.
Okay, the following questions are from anonymous viewers, but we'll start with this top one. What is some advice that you could give or would give to younger kids or siblings? You mentioned your younger brother, to help maintain the culture of acceptance. So your generation has some momentum going and is a bit more open and accepting than prior generations. What would you say to younger kids to kind of maintain that?
I would just say be nice, like you don't have to be like overly dramatic or the cool kid or whatever, like that's not, you're not gonna make it past high school if you're a jerk to everybody. No one's gonna like you when you're an adult in the workforce.
Mhm.
But if I was nice to you every single day and it came down to it, let's say the boss was asking everyone, who do you think deserves a raise? They're gonna be like, that guy right there is one of the nicest people on this field. You should give the raise to them and then you'd be getting a raise.
Mhm.
Or who do you think I should fire? That guy is rude to everyone. He throws coffee in my face every day. Fire him.
Mhm.
Granted, you'd probably get fired a bit earlier than that, but you get the idea.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like I would tell them to just talk about it because growing up, I was in the mindset of if something's wrong, I can't talk about it. Like, gotta be picture perfect, and I'm just now finding my voice to be able to come to these types of things and talk about what's going on in my life. So I feel like if I had learned this from a younger age, I wouldn't have had like struggled as much as I did growing up.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Sage, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think along with like younger generation comes like, this is spread along to everybody, but cancel culture. I think, this is like attack now, answer questions later. I think if, older generations have these questions, don't attack them, just answer the questions.
Ah,
Like explain what's happening and what's wrong.
Because you're never gonna get anywhere if you just attack them, don't explain.
Exactly.
That's a really great perspective. Thank you for that, Sage. I guess this is kind of follows up a little bit, but maybe not comment so much on the first part, more the second part, but another question, how has the open discussion of more sensitive topics changed over the past 5 years? More importantly, what do you predict will happen in the next 5 to 10?
I think it can either go one of two ways, either go even like more open, or it's everything's gonna be like shut back down again, and it'll just repeat history, because history repeats itself. It can and very easily could just continue going one direction, being, oh, everyone's open, we all talk about our feelings, like everything's good. Or it could swerve back and everyone's secluded. It really just depends on how the next generations of people are raised and how they're taught to deal with their emotions.
History does repeat itself, but I think it also kind of depends on us, because if we sit here and we advocate to keep this change going in the next generations to come, and we talk about it and we put our voices out there and we get heard, we can change it, but it's gonna be difficult. There's gonna be people along the way that don't want us to continue talking about our differences. And I feel like we just have to have the strength to keep pushing for it.
I agree with both of your answers, like, everything that's happened politically, it could go one or two ways. Like, we could shut down and it will repeat itself, or we could continue to be open
Yeah,
and it will, grow as like being normalized.
right.
And continue not to fight for just equality, but equity as well.
Mhm. Excellent answers. So this question is gonna kind of dovetail off that same topic. What do you think makes it so hard for some people to talk about these issues and these topics? And then secondary, why do we need to talk about it? Which I feel like you kind of answered, but why do you think it's difficult for some people to have these conversations? What do you think, Sage?
I think the socialization of certain topics is a big barrier. Like, there's a lot of sensitive topics out there, of course. But society doesn't help that. It doesn't, obviously, we're moving towards normalizing these conversations, but there are still people that are behind those barriers.
Mhm. Mhm. Any thoughts?
That's pretty good.
I just think it's the bad stigma around talking about these types of things that hold other people back from sharing their stories and their perspectives, just like what Sage said. So
Mhm.
I think if we try to eliminate the bad perspective on it and focus on like what has happened once we talked about it, I think that maybe it'll help people open up about it.
Yeah, I'm just curious if there's any, not necessarily examples, but, being your age in high school and in college, like, how do you separate between the larger social conversation and what's going on right in front of you? Does that make sense?
That's a difficult
It
one.
is difficult, huh?
Yeah.
Do you see like the larger scale questions making it more challenging for you and your peers to talk about these sorts of things, or do you separate a little more from the?
I kind of separate. I am very selective on what I listen to, ask my parents, but I just kind of ignore like what I don't want to hear, I guess, and I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about. And if you have a problem with that, I won't talk to you about it, but I'm gonna continue talking about it. Maybe not to you, but I will talk to other people about what's going on in my life and what I can do to change it. And I think that's just a perspective that everybody needs to have on life, that just because one person doesn't want to hear what you have to say, doesn't mean nobody wants to hear it.
Mhm.
I agree with that, keeping it like in conversation with the people that are also caring about it, like. I selectively talk to people that have the same opinions as me. I don't discard other people's opinions, I just let them do their own thing
Mhm.
while I do my own thing,
Right.
because. Again, we're all different people living our own lives, we
Yeah.
can't control it.
And we're all entitled to our own opinions, and I'm not gonna argue and try to change yours, but you can't change mine as well, so.
I agree with both of you guys. It's good.
All right, moving on to another question. Similar area. how has the open discussion of these sensitive topics changed in the past 5 years from your perspective? And what do you think might happen in the coming 5 years?
We did talk about that one a little bit. But do you have, I guess let's generalize it a little more. Do you have faith in the state of your generation right now moving forward?
I think so.
believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of, I don't want to say that we are like fiery, that we're a fiery generation, but we certainly have our aspects that are a little more like, I'm not gonna sit here and deal with this. I'm gonna do my own thing. And I think that's kind of a good thing to have if you want to change certain aspects. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I think one more question here. It's a little more difficult to ask, but it kind of encapsulates everything. How do we teach adults to be more understanding? And how do you think, what can adults do right now to make you feel more included besides listening? Like, what can we do to encourage Harger and I's peer generations?
So I think putting you in a situation where you'd have to be more like open-minded about it and like discuss it, like one-on-one is really good because you can ask questions. It's not just a big group of people and you're like, oh, is there's turn to talk? Can I ask that question now? No, it's like a conversation about what should be happening and what like you really should steer away from. It's disrespectful or whatever else.
I feel like the one-on-one experience is really good, but also the group is as well. I feel like just go throw yourself into a group that is a little bit different than what your opinion is or what you want to learn about. And just see how it operates, see what they have to deal with, listen to what they have to say, and just as a whole group, trying to understand them and what they're fighting for.
The understanding is a huge part of it. I think my aspect would be like taking the steps to do something, like using the praxis and like using somebody's pronouns, like somebody's preferred pronouns. That's a huge thing today. Like, it's just taking those little steps, like grandparents, like my grandfather sending me a non-gendered birthday card, like that's a big thing.
That's huge.
And if you mess up, you're allowed to mess up,
Yeah.
but apologize and fix it. That's the number one
Yeah,
thing.
apologize, fix it, and move forward. What can I do better?
Wonderful. I love that.
Awesome answer.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Well, it's about closing time here. So this concludes today's Coffee with a Purpose conversation. Thank you so much, Sage, Rose, James, for being here today and for your openness to share with us. You represent the very best of Jobs for Michigan's graduates, and we could not be more proud of you all for being so open and honest with this conversation today. And thank you as well, Harger, for taking the time joining us as co-moderator. We also would like to give a special thank you to our coffee sponsor for this session, the Crib Coffee House located here in Marquette. That was generous enough to donate coffee for our session today. A link to their website will be added in the chat. And if you are local, please go support those who support us. Thank you again to the Crib. Youth Solutions is eager to partner with school districts and community-based organizations to foster belonging for youth by raising the youth voice, helping ensure they are seen and heard, and by giving them access to different career paths through education and work experience programs. If your school or organization is interested in exploring a partnership, visit ouryouthsolutions.org. If you would like to learn more about Youth Solutions, Jobs for Michigan's graduates, MADMC, or NMU, links to these programs will be posted in the chat for you to reference. And last but never least, thank you to our audience of over 50 viewers today for your time, energy, and interest. It's connecting to people like you that helps JMG assist in the success of our youth and all of their future endeavors. Thank you all again for joining us today for part two of our three-part diversity, equity, inclusion, and youth coffee with a purpose roundtable discussion. We will be taking a break for the summer, but be on the lookout this fall for an invitation to part 3 of the series, where we will connect with another group of JMG youth to get their perspectives on this very important topic. Stay safe and be healthy, everyone, and we hope you plan to join us in our next Coffee with a Purpose.